on first down. They hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, INDY. And again, it's picked off. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with a second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac. Kenny Moore gets to Deshaun Watson. That's a sack for Kenny Moore. Kenny has a pick and now a sack in the game.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Bring the Juice podcast. I am your co-host, Cody Felger. Derek Larger joining me as normal. And we have a special guest on today, a fellow YouTuber friend of ours, Ian from Jet Central. Ian, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. I appreciate the invitation to come on the show. The Colts are one of those teams that I always feel like are in it every year, and I've just as a fan of football, I admire the Colts and their fans. So Cody and Derek, I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. I'm curious about you, Ian, a little bit, about your background and your history here. Obviously, your channel, it's pretty big. I don't know if it's the biggest Jets channel on YouTube, but it's one of the bigger ones for sure. Over 12,000 subscribers. So you guys should definitely check out his channel. Some good stuff on there. Not just Jets content, but also NFL content, I noticed when I was browsing through some of your stuff. I'm curious, man, how did you get started? First off, how did you become a Jets fan? And then also, how did you get started with this whole YouTubing, podcasting type of world? And how cool has it been just for you to see your channel grow exponentially like it has?
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, so being from Florida, well, I guess it kind of starts with my parents. My parents were both from Connecticut, and so they kind of were Jets fans growing up. And so when me and my little brother were kids, it was always kind of, Jets were on Sundays, right? We'd all go out to restaurants or to the sports bar, whatever it was, and we'd watch the Jets. And then I was kind of I'm located in like South Florida, so there's just a ton of Dolphins fans everywhere. So I go to school with Dolphins fans all the time, and I didn't really want to follow like the status quo. I want to pick another team, and what better team than the Jets, my parents' team, and the rival of the local Miami Dolphins. So that's kind of how I started following the Jets. It was just kind of implemented at a young age that the Jets were kind of like the good guys here. And the YouTube channel kind of came about back, I believe, in 2015. It was just, honestly, it came out with a little bit of frustration with anytime you would turn on like the mainstream sports media outlets, it would just be, kind of bashing the Jets or, replaying the butt fumble over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Nobody ever really praising the team or saying like or giving the team any props or any positives at all. It was always negative, right? Always negative. And also being from Florida, there's no Jets fans around here. So I just kind of wanted to connect with some other Jet fans because I'd never been up to a Jet game like at MetLife Stadium, during that time. So it was really cool just because I wanted to, I was hoping for maybe like 5 or 10 subscribers, to talk Jets football after games and to preview the games and stuff like that. And I didn't really think it would turn into something like this, but, I definitely still have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, great job with that. So obviously you're friends with UCF Jaguar. We had him on the podcast earlier this week talking about the Jaguars and their free agency so far. I went back and looked at some of your videos from, I think it was, 2 years ago, and then a couple from what you've done recently. I saw the video of you guys watching the draft when you guys got Sam Darnold. I thought that was a really funny one to watch. Was surprised to see your guys' reactions. Obviously, you guys were able to make that trade with the Colts, moving up to that third pick, and gave us your 6 in a couple seconds. I think it's safe to say personally that I felt like that trade really did work out for both of our teams. Just me personally. How do you feel after seeing that unfold, having a couple years of that trade to go through? How do you feel your team turned out with drafting Sam Darnold?
Right. So, I mean, hindsight's always 2020. But as far as just grading the trade, like looking back on just the trade, so pick 3 for I think it was pick 6 and 3 second rounders.
Mhm.
I thought that was a great deal for both teams because everybody knew why the Jets were going to go up and move to 3 it was to take a quarterback, whether it was Allen, Rosen, Baker, or Darnold, whoever it was going to be. The Jets needed to get a QB. Like we just could not roll McCown out there and Petty out there and Hackenberg out there once again.
Yeah.
We had to get the quarterback of the future, no matter who it was. Now, based off the trade, I thought it was perfect for both teams. Now, in that Darnold video, it was pretty obvious that Sam, he was my least favorite out of the 4, right? Now, my initial kind of thoughts with Sam Darnold going in, because after that video came out, there was like a big misconception that I thought he was a bust and that like I did not want the Jets to go near him and that he was going to be like a terrible NFL quarterback.
Mhm.
Like kind of going into that draft, I was kind of under the impression of what I've seen from all 4 guys that all 4 were going to pan out. This was going to be one of those quarterback heavy drafts. Not like a 2013, like a Geno Smith, Nassib, Glennon type year. I thought that draft 2018 was going to be stacked with quarterbacks, right? So 5 teams were going to get franchise quarterbacks, including like Lamar Jackson. But I will admit I did not think Lamar would pan out this much or this early. But as far as like the core 4 quarterbacks, and as everybody knows him as Rosen, Mayfield, Darnold, and Josh Allen, I really had my sights set on Rosen throughout the whole process.
Mhm.
And then leading up to the draft, it was looking like he was going to be the one that was going to fall. And that Baker Mayfield was going to be the guy that the Jets were honing in on. There were rumors that the current offensive coordinator at the time, Jeremy Bates, he already met with Lincoln Riley. He already built the offensive system for Baker Mayfield. They were right on track, and he was going to be the guy to lead the Jets. So, last 2 weeks leading up to the draft, everybody thought it was either going to be Darnold at 1 or Josh Allen at 1. But then, boom, Baker Mayfield gets picked at 1. And at this point, I'm like, oh, my goodness. I was under the impression that Baker Mayfield was going to be the Jets quarterback for like the last couple of weeks. Like I was 100% guaranteed in that. And then the Browns just throw a wrench in everything and take Baker. And at that point, my head's just swirling because then I'm like, oh, my God, because Darnold's now on the board. He was like QB1 on a lot of teams' boards. Are the Giants going to pick him now? And if the Giants pick him, now we're going to have to choose between Allen or Rosen. So there was like a lot of questions going through my head, and then we picked Darnold, and I was kind of under the impression, like I said, I was 100% for Baker Mayfield, and I was really, really hoping for Josh Rosen. And I wouldn't be upset with Josh Allen. I just didn't know at the time how he would handle the big market. Before the draft, I met Josh Allen at the Senior Bowl, and he was a totally cool dude, like the nicest guy in the world. So it was all a really cool process leading up to it. But then it was Darnold, and that was kind of one of the only scenarios that I did not see playing out. So I wasn't really expecting it. But he had a lot of question marks coming out. But to kind of make it bring it back to full circle to answer your question, I think Darnold can be the guy. And I think the haul that the Colts got, like the picks in return, like if you have the opportunity to get pretty much 4 picks and they're all within the first 2 to 3 rounds, like you got to do that trade. And, I know the Colts made out pretty well. Like I think Rock Ya-Sin, the corner from Temple, was one of our picks. And I could be wrong. I think it was Kameko Ture from Rutgers. He was another one.
Kamoko was the one, and obviously, Quentin Nelson at that 6th pick. I mean, we everybody recognizes. You guys got Sam Darnold, we got Quentin Nelson, we got a couple other guys. We got Darius Leonard in mixed with that as well. So our 2 centerpieces came from that trade, basically.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, is probably my favorite general manager in the league right now. I mean, he has such a knack for developing or to find talent at the college level and then get them in the NFL or get them in the pro building and then develop them. And I really, really, really like that because you never really see the Colts just dishing out these massive mega deals and then 2 years later just regretting it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Yeah, so pretty much to kind of just finish it off, I definitely think that both teams were quote unquote winners. Um, but I do think at the end of the day, the Colts, whenever you can walk away with multiple high picks, I would say you're probably leaning in the direction of winning the trade. But
Mhm.
I mean, is there really like a winner? And I don't think a team like lost the trade,
Yeah,
if that makes
right.
sense.
Mhm. Yeah, and you mentioned that pick. I believe it was. All right, so I pulled it up here. Looks like we got Quentin Nelson at 6. You guys got Sam Darnold there at 3, and then we got picks 37 and 49, and then a second round pick in 2019, which we drafted Rocky Sin. We traded down. Got Rocky Sin from that one. And then we selected Braden Smith and Kamoko Ture. So 2 young guys who have flashed and have been good starters for the Colts. Definitely something where, and also Jordan Wilkins out of that as well somehow. So got a decent haul from that for sure. I kind of want to move in now to the Jets free agency, and also there's a lot of connections with you guys getting Rex Hogan, who was formerly with the Colts, but you guys signed Brashad Perriman, who we thought was a guy that the Colts could potentially sign for a bargain type of deal. You guys have taken on former Colts players with that Rex Hogan connection. A couple of years ago, you guys traded for Henry Anderson. I believe you gave us like a 6th or 7th round pick for that. You guys recently acquired Pierre Desir, who we released, and then last year you guys got Matthias Farley, Josh Andrews this year in free agency. So there's a lot of former Colts, it seems like, heading to New York. I'm
Mhm.
curious for you, Ian, what have you thought of the Jets free agency so far?
So right, yeah. If I had to, I guess, just give a grade on it, I would probably say right now it's a B minus. I mean, I thought we attacked the positions of need pretty well, right? Cornerback, offensive line, wide receiver with the Brashad Perryman thing, but I wouldn't give him an A or an A minus or anything crazy like that, just because a lot of the guys that we acquired are like more tier 2, tier 3 kind of guys. Granted, we're not dishing out these mega contracts,
Mhm.
putting the team possibly like a step behind in the future, or mortgaging the future for short term gains. But as of right now, I really like what the Jets are building. I just hope that these moves pan out and we're not just taking the cheap route and we're just
Mhm.
saying, well, hey, look, we addressed the offensive line. We just didn't want to spend the money. So this is just the best we're going to get. So here you go, Sam Darnold. Like, good luck protecting, or good luck blocking for Le'Veon Bell, or good luck blocking for Sam Darnold. They're just kind of short, kind of undercutting the fans a little bit and just kind of just going for the cheaper route, because we saw the Cleveland Browns do that for years and years and years. I hope that's not the plan, but I highly doubt it because it is Joe Douglas's first season as general manager. I think he might be just a little hesitant to pay a guy like Jadeveon Clowney or a Jack Conklin or
Mhm.
a Logan Ryan or Chris Harris, right? Somebody that was asking for a lot of money. So at the end of the day, I do like all the Colts connections. I did think, we did pay Henry Anderson a little too much. He did sign a 3-year extension back last season with the team under, I think it was the old general manager. So that contract is kind of weird now because he did sign the extension and then the GM got fired. But I would have to say Pierre Desir is my favorite pickup of the team,
Mhm.
throughout the entire process. So Desir was one of the guys who I always respected and liked for Indianapolis because he kind of came out of nowhere,
Mhm.
and nobody really considers him as like a top 5, top 10, top 15 corner. But he's outside of last season, he was a durable guy who played a lot, played on the outside, and he challenged number 1 wide receivers, and I really really like that
Mhm.
from Indianapolis's defense.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked what you guys have done so far with building depth at some of the key positions. Offensive line, like you mentioned, the Colts are struggling with that right now because we've gotten a lot of our guys taken away from us. But yeah, an offensive line at linebacker, at corner, you guys are putting together good ones there. So obviously, I think I have a good idea of what some more needs you guys have, but what's the biggest needs that you feel the Jets are in need of right now?
So I would actually say, instead of like, giving you like one position, like, oh, we need wide receiver, or oh, we need left guard or something like that, I'm just going to say we need explosiveness. on offense. I mean, we have nobody to take. I mean, outside of Brashad Perryman, but we lost Robbie Anderson. We have Jamison Crowder and Le'Veon Bell, and nobody's really no defensive coordinator out there is game planning for a Jamison Crowder or a Brashad Perryman or a Ron Griffin at tight end. Like nobody's doing that. We have to get explosive playmakers that can actually impact the game offensively, that can create on their own, that don't need somebody to be double teamed on the other side for them to make a play. So I'm really looking forward to the draft because, sitting there at spot number 11, there's going to be guys available like Henry Ruggs, like Jerry Jeudy, like CeeDee Lamb. And I'd have to say if the draft was tomorrow, CeeDee Lamb would probably be the number one guy who I would take. And I know a lot of Jets fans would disagree, and they got to say, they would say like, oh my God, like what about Andrew Thomas and Tristan Wirfs and Mekhi Becton and all these different guys, Jedrick Wills, because we still do need help on the offensive line. But I'm kind of in that ballpark where I'm looking at the Jets offense, and yeah, even if Sam has time to throw, we have no threats at wide receiver at all. And even backup quarterback we don't have, backup running backs we don't have. We're just a thin offensive team, and I just want to get explosive and dynamic and creative on offense, and we can't really do that without any explosive players. So that's kind of my biggest overall need post kind of free, like that first and second wave of free agency. I still feel like we lack that enforcer on offense. I mean, we do have Le'Veon, but he's kind of, I don't want to say he's a shell of himself, but I still feel like we lack that number one guy on the outside. And if that guy were to go down, we have absolutely nobody. So that's kind of my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you pointed out you need some playmakers on offense, some guys who are going to do that. I feel like personally now as we stand, the Colts are kind of in the same boat. Like the Colts, there's so much unknown, especially at the wide receiver and even the tight end position, arguably. I mean, you got Jack Doyle, who is kind of, he's a good tight end, but he's not a tight end that's going to take the top off of defense. And then you have question marks all throughout your receiving core. T.Y. Hilton's getting up there in age. He was hurt last year. He was 18, but he played through it. And, just question marks about how much longer can he do it. And then you have, Paris Campbell, who's unknown, Zach Pascal, who had a decent year, but, you'd probably want him to be your number 4 receiver. And so I totally get what you're saying. You need guys that, don't need, even if they're double team, they can go up there and they can make a play. And that's actually Derek and I recently, and this will be posted after the podcast, but we recently recorded Derek's mock draft 2.0. And he, in that mock draft, he was talking about some guys who are really good at going up and getting the ball, especially at the wide receiver position. And that's a big need that the Colts need. So moving on here to kind of the Colts offseason, from a Jets perspective, obviously we lost Pierre Desir. We lost some other guys who, were probably Pierre Desir, I would say, was the only real surprise for me that the Colts got. But brought back Anthony Costanzo, traded our number 13th pick for DeForest Buckner, signed Xavier Rhodes, signed Sheldon Day, signed some other guys, some other second-tier backup type of guys. What has your impression been of this Colts 2020 offseason?
So, and first, I just kind of want to make a comment on the whole mock draft thing that you were just talking about. It's funny because I feel like if the Colts didn't trade their first round pick for DeForest Buckner, like in every one of the mocks that I was personally running through, I was like pegging in a Henry Ruggs, I was pegging in a Jerry Jeudy, a CeeDee Lamb. Like I really feel like the Colts, they're looking at the wide receiver position as well. And you made a great point. I think that's a thin position as well. But the good thing for you guys is you can target a Denzel Mims in the second round or a Michael Pittman or a Jalen Reagor out of TCU, right? So you can get wide receiving depth in rounds 2, 3, and 4. Even a guy like Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, who would come in and make an impact, right? He wouldn't just be buried on the depth chart. But no, to answer your question, to kind of grade or to look at the Colts offseason, outside of the Phillip Rivers deal, I think it's a slam dunk. I love what Chris Ballard's doing with DeForest Buckner. I mean, I think, did the Colts sign him to an extension like the minute that they traded for him?
Yeah, it was a 4-year extension worth $84 million. So
Yeah,
He's
and
getting most of that in the back end of the deal too. So if things don't go well, then the Colts aren't losing as much as they originally could be.
right. So, I mean, even better. So you're signing him to a 4-year team-friendly extension. DeForest Buckner, when I looked at him coming out of Oregon, obviously a top 10 pick, he was one of my favorite players in the draft. And then he's on San Francisco in a loaded defensive line with Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas and all these different guys, Eric Armstead. He was still one of my favorite guys. So for only, and I know like, oh my God, it's a first round pick. Like you're not in the first round, top 15 pick anymore. Like you don't have that nice asset. You're getting a guy who's going to be the anchor of the defense, who's going to create pressure up the middle. With long arms, he's a tall dude. I think he's 6'6" or 6'7" or something like that. Who he's just a force to be reckoned with in the middle of the field, and you sign him to an extension. So I love that move. I know you guys brought in Sheldon Day and Xavier Rhodes. Those are two like underrated moves in my personal opinion, especially Xavier Rhodes, because I feel like with Matt Eberflus, the Colts defensive coordinator, who's one of my favorite coordinators in the league, he seems to really be able to maximize tier 2 and tier 3 type of players. So now you get a guy in the building like Xavier Rhodes, who in recent years has dominated the NFL, not last season, obviously, but he's been a Pro Bowl guy. He's been a guy that follows number one wide receivers. Everybody, watch those that Vikings Giants game on Monday Night Football a couple years back, where he just single-handedly just shut down Odell Beckham Jr. just with ease. So if he, and guys like TJ Carey and whatnot from Cleveland, if you guys get these dudes in the building healthy and ready to go for the regular season, I think this Colts defense is definitely a force to be reckoned with. And especially when you take a look at the division too that they play in, I think Houston is kind of making these weird, strange moves, getting worse as a team. And I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are, pretty much worse as a team as well. So I think the Colts are, getting better, but I don't think they're doing that in a way of like, I think it all kind of goes back to throwing out cash in an unnecessary manner or in a flashy manner. They're kind of building for the long term, right? Like a 6-7 year plan that's going to set them up really, really nice for, in years 3 and 4 and 5. And I still feel like they're kind of in the middle of the rebuilding year. I felt like the year that they made the playoffs, not this past one, but the year before that, 2018, I thought that was a little bit of like an anomaly. But I still kind of think, when I think about the Colts, I still think of a rebuilding team, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's my personal opinion. I don't know the Colts as well as you guys. And I know you guys have all the details and, you guys watch every single snap of Colts football. So you guys would know better than me, but that's kind of just my take on it.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of double back on a few things that you said and kind of touch on them because I thought you made some good points there. The first thing about DeForest Buckner, obviously it's a 13th pick, so it's a high pick, it's a valuable pick. But I kind of look at a guy that's obviously better, Aaron Donald, one of the best defender in the league, one of the most disruptive 3 techniques in the league. And you look at a guy like DeForest Buckner, who I'd say right now, he's still coming on his own. He's an elite player, but I'm not going to put him in the Aaron Donald category, obviously. But you think of a guy like that, you think of some of the top defenders, especially on the defensive line, and you kind of look like, what would Aaron Donald go for? If the Rams were like, we're going to trade Aaron Donald, what could they get out of him? I feel like they could get multiple first-round picks out of a guy like Aaron Donald. Then you look at what the Colts gave up. Yeah, it's pretty high for a 13th overall pick. But for where you're probably going to project to, Derek in his first mock draft kind of projected the Colts to maybe be looking at that 3 technique before this trade, looking at a guy like Javon Kinlaw or one of those guys, Derek Brown, and kind of thinking it makes a lot of sense to me because you're not giving up multiple picks for one. You're only trading 1 pick, and you're basically drafting DeForest Buckner, a guy who's been a first-team All-Pro and has had double-digit sacks in his career. Last year, he only had 7.5 sacks, but that 49ers defensive line was just loaded all the time. So he's a dominant 3 technique. And with the style that the Colts play, this defense, I believe, Derek, we were talking about, I think Tony Dungy was talking about basically the 3 technique. And he was basically saying the same thing. He's like, the 3 technique, it drives this defense. It really does. It's a huge thing in this defense. And to get a player like DeForest Buckner's caliber, a guy who can single-handedly wreck a game for only the 13th pick, I'm personally on board for that because you know what you're going to get right away. Like Javon Kinlaw and Derek Brown could be great players in the NFL.
Right,
But
exactly.
the facts are they're going to be rookies, right? And you don't know. They're hoping to get to the level that DeForest Buckner is currently at. And so I like that. I like what you said there. I think that makes a lot of sense from my perspective, and I really like the move personally.
Right, and off your point, like, let me just ask you, who's the second best defensive tackle in the league? Like, you probably couldn't even think. Like,
you think Aaron, and then you'd think everyone else below that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you say, oh, it's DeForest Buckner, nobody would tell you you're wrong. You can make an argument that DeForest Buckner right now is the second best, defensive tackle in the league behind Darnold. And, Darnold is kind of, once in a generation type of player. So it is what it is. But especially in this day and age of football, where I feel like the edge rushers they're just a little bit. I don't want to say they're being neutralized, but I would say they're a little bit less important than creating the havoc, creating the pass rush from the interior, just because quarterbacks are getting the ball out of their hands so quickly. Everybody's in shotgun, so you have to. In 3-step drops, like with the amount of screens and the amount of slants that we see from, teams like the Saints and the Chiefs and all these high flying teams, the Eagles, you have to create pressure up the middle. Like, you have to do that. And if that was the biggest need, or one of the biggest needs for Indianapolis, to go out and just trade one pick for DeForest Buckner, and you then sign him to a 4-year extension, it's not like it's not like a Jadeveon Clowney situation where you're going to say, okay, we're going to sign him for the year, and then if he plays well, we'll extend him. Or if, we think he fits with the defense. It's no, we got him in the building. He's obviously a dominant player who is produced at a high level. He's still young. And on top of that, we signed him for, an extra 4 years at a team-friendly deal. Like, you cannot beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one more question for you. I don't know if Cody will have an extra one here, but I think this is my last one for you. So, what is your realistic expectation for both of our teams, the Colts and the Jets? Because I personally believe that just from what we've seen in free agency so far and before pre-draft, obviously, I think that both of our teams have gotten exceptionally better. Obviously, the Colts adding all these pieces on defense and getting Phillip Rivers, I definitely think increases us right now. And then with the Jets, obviously, you guys getting offensive line depth, trying to get Rashad Perryman. You'll most likely get a wide receiver in the draft, maybe 2, to kind of help add to this. And, you obviously got a few pieces on the defense. So I think both teams have realistically gone up by a good standard. What do you think for both of ours?
Well, let me just ask you a quick question about Indianapolis, just because I'm really curious.
Okay.
As far as the Colts quarterback position goes, you have Brissett, you have Phillip Rivers. Do you see the Colts maybe targeting a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, like a Jacob Eason or somebody?
Actually, I am of the belief, and I know a bunch of others will disagree. That's fine. But I think the only way that right now the Colts go for a quarterback is if it's Jordan Love. That's the only reason I would think that if Jordan Love were to fall, say go back beyond 23, somehow, some way, and then they decide to, if they take the chance on it, maybe trade those 2 second-rounders to go after Jordan Love to know you got your quarterback of the future, then I understand. Maybe somehow, some way Jalen Hurts falls to the 3rd or 4th round. Who knows? Maybe they might take the chance on that. I think they can, but I just don't think, from what I've seen, haven't heard the Colts really make any kind of distinction between those guys, unless it's Jordan Love. I just don't see them really trying to make a push for a guy like that.
Okay, cool. So realistically, it's going to be between Brissett and Rivers. Like, I don't know if it's an open competition. I don't know who's starting.
I think right now it's Phillip Rivers. I mean, they paid him $25 million to be that guy because, Jacoby Brissett, as great of a player and a teammate that he is just not at a Phillip Rivers moment that I think that the Colts feel that way. But obviously, this is a short-term thing. They're obviously just going to go 1 or 2 years with Phillip. and, probably get somebody next year if they don't indeed get a quarterback in this draft.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to say, so a few points why I think the Colts are probably, if they do take a quarterback, like you said, if a guy falls like Jordan Love, you take him. But, I'm kind of thinking if they do draft a quarterback, I would probably not do second or third. I'd probably see them fourth or fifth round, just because some of the moves that they've made, trading for DeForest Buckner, signing Xavier Rhodes, signing some of these guys, besides DeForest Buckner, I think pretty much all these guys are on one-year deals. So for me, that signifies that you're not tying yourselves to guys, and it signifies to me, especially with the Phillip Rivers signing, you think you can win now? You think you can compete now? And so I think what they're going to do in the draft is just try to give Phillip Rivers some weapons, because the Colts have not done anything in terms of bringing back maybe Reese Fountain, who's a guy that's kind of floated between the practice squad. They've made no significant moves in bringing any guys in free agency. And so for me, it signals that the Colts are probably going to try to build around Phillip Rivers, give him some weapons, and try to compete this year. And again, if it doesn't work out, if Phillip Rivers is as bad as he was last year, then I think it's fine, because you can find your quarterback of the future. And maybe if you draft the guy fourth or fifth round, maybe you see what you got there. But to me, it just signifies that the Colts are probably going to try to build around him and maybe try to push off the quarterback, trying to find that quarterback of the future immediately, and maybe look at that next season. So that's kind of what it signifies to me. And also, with the Phillip Rivers connection, he has a connection with Frank Reich, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, Nick Sirianni, and I believe the tight ends coach as well. I just read that, I think, somewhere. So for me, I kind of think that it makes a lot of sense in terms of the types of quarterbacks that we know when Andrew Luck was here with the Colts, Frank Reich talked about all these things that he loves from Andrew Luck and he values in a quarterback. And one of them was accuracy, make quick decisions. There's a lot of things. You can go back and look at kind of all the things that Frank Reich listed. But I kind of look at Phillip Rivers. He's a very accurate quarterback, right? He pushes the ball down the field. Yeah, I know those 20-plus interceptions, they're frightening, and Frank Reich's acknowledged they're unacceptable, right? But the big thing, I think, is he does a lot of the things based off of what Frank Reich, he just had a press conference a couple days ago, based off of what Frank Reich has talked about that he's looking for in his quarterback position. I think Phillip Rivers is the right fit. And again, there's arguments about, well, has Father Time caught up with Phillip Rivers? What's the deal? Why did he turn the ball over? Why did he have such a terrible season last year? But I think as far as the system, Frank Reich said Phillip Rivers knows about 80 to 85% of the playbook. And so it's a good fit, I think, right there. And then, if Phillip Rivers just completely bombs, you kind of have a viable option there with Jacoby Brissett, if indeed you don't address the quarterback position in the draft at all this year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I still think Brissett, I'm a big Brissett guy. And don't get me wrong, I love Phillip Rivers, like the early San Diego Chargers days and stuff like that. Huge fan. But just based off of last season, I think I would lean more towards a Brissett, or if you play a guy like Rivers and he struggles early, right? Say the Colts are 1-5, or he's just turning the ball over at a crazy rate, or they're going 3 and out. I would have a really short leash with a Phillip Rivers. That's me personally. I still think Brissett has room to get better. I still like Jacoby as a quarterback. I'm not saying he's Rodgers or Mahomes or Drew Brees, but I do like Brissett, and I can see him kind of as like the game manager style of quarterback. But kind of in regards to, the original question, which was, how I think the Colts will finish, or how I think both teams will finish. Talking about the Colts first, I think they will be in the mix for winning the division. That's just me, just based off of, looking at their moves that they made, looking at their coaching staff, looking at still, having the draft, and also the teams in their division. And the one thing that I feel like bodes really well for Indianapolis, that's really going to help them or benefit them, even if they don't finish in first place, like say Houston, Bill O'Brien this whole time is a genius, and DeAndre Hopkins falls off for Arizona and David Johnson wins, comeback player, just some like crazy thing happens, or Tennessee just continues its dominant role. There's 3 wild cards in the AFC this season. Okay, so Indianapolis, they can do enough to just hang around. They can get 9 wins, or 8 to 9 wins, and still be in the playoff race. So I like Indianapolis. I think when I take a look at the entire division, that Frank Reich is far and away the best coach in the division. And I also think that they have the best staff in the division as well. So I look at Indianapolis and I think they're going to have a lot of success this season. I don't think they're going to have like 11, 12, 13 wins, anything crazy. Like they're not going to be dominant. But I do think they're going to be in the thick of things as we start to roll into December, of course, if the season starts on time. But once playoffs kind of start to roll around and like the seeding starts to come up in conversation, I think the Colts are going to be right there. I really do believe that. Now, as far as the New York Jets go, I personally like the team. I just don't really like Adam Gase. I've never been a Gase guy. When he was back in Miami, never really was a fan either. I think right now the Jets will be a better team than last season, but I don't think their record will show it. I think they'll get 6 wins next season because we have a straight gauntlet of a schedule. We have to play teams like Kansas City and Tampa Bay and New Orleans, and I don't want to count the Patriots out. They're not going to be some horrible team. So we still have to play them twice a year. We still have to play the Bills, who look like a great team, under McDermott and these guys. So I think the Jets will finish somewhere with, 6 wins, considering, or, with not having the schedule in front of me, but just knowing the teams we play, the opponents. I think we'll probably finish 4th or 3rd in our division. But that's just kind of my honest opinions on both teams.
You should see how my friend Josh feels about Adam Gase. Oh my gosh, his hatred towards Adam Gase. He's not even a Jets fan; he's Colts fan like myself, but yet he hates Adam Gase. Absolutely hates him. I mean, so you're not. You even got a Colts fan that's telling you that guy should be gone.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I like guys like, Greg Williams and Jamal Adams and Le'Veon Bell and Darnold. And, we have like likable guys that I feel like will steer the team in the right direction. But I feel like the captain of the ship is he's like the cancer of the team right now. We just can't go anywhere until he's removed. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, and we know that very well as Colts fans. I mean, we had to endure Ryan Grigson for years, a guy who destroyed this franchise, really basically was the primary culprit for why Andrew Luck retired. He just did not do anything to protect his star quarterback. So we totally feel you there on just the guys who are making the decisions. If they're not good, no matter how good of players you have, it trickles down, and it's something where it impacts the entire organization. So we definitely understand and feel your pain there. Well, Ian, thank you so much, man, for coming on to this podcast. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to maybe when draft time comes around here in the next few weeks, maybe reconnect, or maybe after the draft, we'll kind of see how it goes for both of our schedules. But yeah, man, so you have a YouTube channel as well. Where can people find you? What do they have to type in to kind of find your YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me on. I had a great time, and I'm always down to talk Colts. I know I'm a big Jet fan and stuff like that, but Indianapolis, like I said at the start of the pod, I respect them. I love Chris Ballard, Frank Reich. Incredible decision to hire him after McDaniels bailing out on the team. Yeah, that was just a complete disaster. So it is what it is. I love the Colts, and so I run a YouTube channel like you guys mentioned. It's called Jet Central, just one word on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, so that's pretty much where you can find me. I pretty much just talk all things New York Jets, bounce a little bit around the NFL, like weekly picks and kind of breaking news, stuff like that, like trades and coaching hires, coaching fires, all that good stuff as well. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll have to do it again sometime. Take care, man.
Hey, thanks a lot.